And if you doubt God, you must live in fear and guilt all your life. If you doubt God's intentions and God's ability to produce the ultimate result, then how can you ever relax? How can you ever truly find peace? Yet God has full power to match intentions with results. You cannot and will not believe in this, even though you claim that God is all powerful. And so you have to create your imagination a power equal to God, in order that you may find a way for God's will to be thwarted. You have to think up something more powerful than God. If God's way is going to be thwarted, you're like, well, there's something more powerful than God. And so you've created in your mythology a being you call devil. You have even imagined a God at war with this being, thinking that God solves problems the way you do. Finally, you have actually imagined that God could lose this war. All of this violates everything you say you know about God, but this doesn't matter. You live your illusion, and thus you feel fear, all out of your decision to doubt God. But what if you made a new decision? What then would be the result? If you make a new decision, you believe that decision to be right. And then what's the result? I tell you this, you would live as Buddha did, as Jesus did, as did every saint you have ever idolized. Yet, as with most of those saints, people would not understand you. And when you tried to explain your sense of peace, your joy in life, your inner ecstasy, they would listen to your words, but not hear them. They would try to repeat your words, but would add to them. They would wonder how you could have what they could not find. They would wonder how you could have what they could not find. And then they would grow jealous. Soon jealousy would turn to rage, and your anger and their anger they would try to convince you, and in their anger, and then they would grow jealous. Soon jealousy would turn to rage, and in their anger, they would try to convince you that it is you who do not understand God. So they're getting mad at you like, oh, you're trying to tell me you knew God? Like, this isn't God. Because they have their own. And if they were unsuccessful at tearing you from your joy, they would seek to harm you. So enormous would be their rage. And when you told them it does not matter, and even death cannot interrupt your joy, nor changing your truth, they would surely kill you. Then, when they saw the peace with which you accepted death, they would call you a saint and love you again. For it is the nature of people to love, then destroy, then love again, that which they value most. But Neil asks, why? Why do we do that? All human actions are motivated at their deepest level by one of two emotions, fear and love. In truth, there are only two emotions, only two words in the language of the soul. These are the opposite ends of the great polarity which I created when I produced the universe and your world as you know it today. These are the 2 points, the alpha and the omega, which allow the system you call relativity to be. Without these 2 points, without these 2 ideas about things, no other idea could exist. Every human thought and every human action is based in either love or fear. There is no other human motivation, and all other ideas are but derivatives of these two. They are simply different versions, different twists on the same theme. And when I read that, it's just so simplified. It's either one or the other. There's only two things. That's a lot how a computer thinks. It's either zeros or ones. Fear or love. And we don't always imagine which is which, and it's hard to understand this language when you're just going through these motions and you are having the same experience over and over so that you until you understand it. That was the end of page 15. It's just these cycles that go over and over, and it seems like we do the same thing. I'm going to finish page 16. Think on this deeply, and you will see that it is true. This is what I've called the sponsoring thought. It is either a thought of love or fear. This is the thought behind the thought behind the thought. It is the first thought. It is the prime force. It is the raw energy that drives the engine of human experience. And here is how human behavior produces repeat experience after repeat experience. It is why humans love, then destroy, then love again. Always there's swing from one emotion to the other. Love sponsors fear, sponsors love, sponsors fear. And the reason is found in the first lie, the lie which you hold as truth about God, that God cannot be trusted, that God's love cannot be depended upon, that God's acceptance of you is conditional, that ultimate outcome is thus in doubt. For if you cannot depend on God's love to always be there, on whose love can you depend? If God retreats and withdraws when you do not perform properly, will not mere mortals also? If I retreat from myself, if I can't love myself fully and know that I am perfect, I'm good now where I am, I love me for who I am, that perfect love and joy and acceptance of what I hold, my experiences, then you don't exist. If God retreats and withdraws when you do not perform properly, will not mere mortals also? That means everyone goes away. It's just you, because no one else loves you, but because you don't love yourself. And so it is that in the moment you pledge your highest love, your greet for your greatest fear, you greet your greatest fear, for the first thing you worry about after saying I love you is whether you'll hear it back. And if you hear it back, then you begin immediately to worry that the love you have just found, you will lose. And so all action becomes a reaction, defense against loss, even as you seek to defend yourself against the loss of God. Yet, if you knew who you are, that you are the most magnificent, the most remarkable, the most splendid being God ever created, and always have been, you would never fear. For who could reject such wondrous magnificence. Not even God could find fault in such a being as you. But you do not know who you are, and you think you are a great deal less. And where did you get the idea of how much less than magnificent you are? Like, where'd you come up with this idea that you're not perfect? Who told you that? From the only people whose word you would take on everything, from your mother and father. Everything you're told is what you believe until you don't believe it. Until that changes. Well, we'll come back to page 17. Think that I need a break. Some pondering.